Seems like every time I talk to somebody that I haven't met before, I'm like, oh, hey, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we're doing white label OTC, we're building for people. Oh, we're building our own OTC. There's OTC mania in Asia. So absolutely, we have to have a panel on it right here, right now. We're going to kick off. I'm going to start bringing the speakers up. First up, let's get Wayne Trench. Here we go. Wayne, are you ready to go? I'm from Hong Kong. He's from Hong Kong. Come on up, Wayne. There you go. Excellent. Fantastic. Okay, so I kicked off. I'm playing there were both Hong Kong guys, but I got to play we're both Vancouver guys. Why don't I introduce Justin Chow, who's the head of business development for Cumberland. We've had Cumberland up here today. Let's get a little bit more of that Cumberland action. There you go. Here he comes. All right, Justin, there we go. And we've got Loy Liu, who's the CEO and founder of KHYBER Network. I made a Star Wars joke in the last one. KHYBER is a Star Wars reference for you guys that are really geeking out, but we're going to geek out on some OTC talk with Loy Liu, CEO of KHYBER Network. Okay, John, take it away.
Well, thank you so much for joining me to talk about a very interesting topic. And I have a bit of a challenge, and a good challenge, to talk about both OTC trading as well as decentralized trading, two very hot topics. So I'll do my best to give equal weight to both because they're both very interesting and very important. I wanted to start off perhaps with OTC a little bit, and I just thought I would just start with Wayne. Well, really Wayne and Justin, what is the state of OTC trading in Asia right now? I mean, just, how would you characterize its development, call it, in the last 3 months? If you could set the scene for us a little bit.
OTC trading still accounts for the bulk of volume that trades globally in the crypto space. The crypto landscape is an interesting one. Parts of the asset class have very FX-like properties, and with that comes fragmentation and liquid markets in general, I would say. But parts of the ecosystem have a little bit more equity-like properties, and I think that movement will continue to actually play out more and more going forward as we move towards a security token landscape. But yeah, liquidity on the over-the-counter space over the last 3 months, I think, has certainly thinned out to an extent. But it's still, for anyone looking to move serious sizes in crypto, the OTC mechanism is the route to take. Exchange liquidity has improved a lot over the last 12 months, both decentralized and centralized exchanges. But the liquidity profile is still too thin to move serious volume.
Yeah, mine's much louder. I tend to agree as well with Wayne. I mean, in the OTC space right now, we've seen a lot of spread compression as well. Market makers come in and they try to compete with pricing, and they're able to provide very high quality institutional liquidity, much different than what you might find on an exchange profile. Also, the benefit of OTC, for those who don't know, is that you can ask for what they call full amount size, and you can trade your full clip away immediately without having to manually sort of work an order on an exchange, which can be very laborious. And instead of running market risk, you can trade out of it immediately. So there are definitely a lot of benefits, and the OTC market continues to grow. I think the difference now is that with larger institutional market makers out there, the participants are able to sort of access this high quality liquidity much quicker than before.
OTC remains the place, but is it relatively stable, that makeup or that balance between exchange and OTC? Is that changing now, or do you feel like what you have is relatively stable, or is it day to day to see what you have?
But I think it's interesting because as the space becomes more institutionalized and you get family offices, or you have regulated funds coming into the space, they might be more comfortable trading with a large corporate institutional OTC desk that they know and has a reputation, and they're custodying their own asset, et cetera. It's very different than putting your coins on an exchange and leaving them there and being subject to the risk of a third party sort of custodying your assets. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of how we see it.
Yeah, and maybe I can add something there. I think, look, the exchange landscape is becoming more institutionalized. There's still a lot of work to do. From a custody perspective, from a fixed connectivity perspective, APIs and the like. There's not too many crypto or digital asset exchanges on a global stage yet that provide connectivity akin to what the SGX or the Hong Kong Exchange would offer. But as that part of the ecosystem develops and matures, more liquidity will flow to those exchanges, I would say. But at the same time, for the brokerage business like ours, the block size that we trade will just continue to get larger. So, and that's no different to traditional markets in equities or fixed income for that matter.
Is there a regulatory component to this? I mean, are changing regulations, or if you're talking about like a crackdown in China, or if you're talking about other issues in different jurisdictions, is that driving flow to a particular platform or away from platforms into OTC? Is that a factor here, or how does that relate?
Yeah, sure. I mean, China's obviously taken a fairly firm stance on the space right now. But I think if you look at Japan, the first to regulate this particular market, you can see that the exchange landscape there, I would say, has had to mature very quickly because they're under the guidance and regulation of the JFSA. So originally, when those exchanges came to market, they were often run by technologists or people who may not have had the experience in traditional financial markets and maybe not the experience of running a regulated exchange. And now being under the guidance and scrutiny of the JFSA, the tools, the infrastructure, and the processes that those incumbent exchanges need to have in place are very real and only getting more onerous. And if they're unable to comply with that, that will shift volume away, I would say, from their exchanges and probably to OTC venues as well.
I think to add on that note as well, on the back of what Wayne just said, even if you take a look at the FX markets, spot FX globally is traded OTC, right? And trillions of dollars worth of volume go through the banks every single year, and it's likely that in the crypto space as well, as regulation comes in, it'll change the whole landscape of how these institutional players operate, starting with the exchanges. So that's where, again, we see that offering an institutional and scalable solution out there where regulated counterparties feel comfortable facing you, that's a very, very important thing. And a healthy thing as the ecosystem continues to grow.
It seems like, for retail flow, it seems like central limit order book is almost the only way to go until you're talking about decentralized exchanges, say. Is that a fair, I guess that's a fairly obvious market structure comment to make. Really you can't do retail orders, anything except for central limit order book, I suppose.
There are other options as well. So for a provider like ourselves with systematic request for quote tools, we can provide very simple, clean, easy access to a more retail-like customer. And of course, on the back end, much the same as Justin, we've got hedging tools that allow us to hedge out risk across multiple exchanges to provide best execution for a retail customer without them having to access that limit order book directly.
Got it. Well, then this is a good jumping off point into decentralized exchanges. And whenever I look over the news headlines, sometimes I get a mixed picture of great promise and great interest in decentralized exchanges, and sometimes I get the sense that it's aspirational but not entirely in use all the time. But maybe is that wrong? How should I be characterizing it?
Right. So we don't operate like OTC services, but we have been received like a few requests from other people that want to use like KHYBER smart contract to offer like trustless OTC services. Because what KHYBER does is actually allowing people to swap their tokens or in a trustless manner, and everything is running on the blockchain. So in terms of like the promises of decentralization, I think we have like to take a longer view to just like whether like decentralization is actually here, because first of all we need like to improve the user experience. And secondly, like not many people actually have like their own private key, right? So they want some of them like prefer like just keep everything on the centralized chains, and some of them even like forget their password from time to time. So in order like, to make decentralized exchanges become mainstream, I think we need like, to address several challenges, including user experience and also the scalability of the underlying infrastructure as well. Yeah.
Is there substantial consumer demand for that? Is there some way for you to measure, pent-up demand or interest? Is there some way that you've been able to measure, the demand from the consumer or retail side for a decentralized type solution?
So I think we can just look at we can just look at the number of transactions happening in all the major decentralized chains, and we. Right. So, we do receive requests from people from time to time to list this token, and they ask about when we can support Bitcoin, when we can support fiat token like USDT or True USD or even stable coin as well. So I think there's a great demand from retail traders when it comes to decentralized chains.
How does the liquidity work for that? Could you just kind of walk through that dynamic a little bit? How does it reside on chain, or how does the liquidity component work for it?
Right. So currently, I think the most of the decentralized chains, the main liquidity source is still from centralized chains. There will be people who actually bring liquidity from centralized chains to on chain, to the blockchain, via smart contract or in other tools. So at the end of the day, we still need people to act as market makers on decentralized chains or liquidity providers on decentralized chains. But I think it's the promise of decentralized chains is that it's permissionless and it's transparent, so people can actually see who are actually providing liquidity on decentralized chains.
Justin, could that be an ambition for your firm to provide liquidity to those types of structures, or are there constraints for you to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think the idea of a decentralized exchange is extremely fascinating. One of the issues with our ability to trade on them at this moment is the lack of KYC and AML and not knowing who your counterparty is. When you're a firm of our size, and you guys had Don Wilson here this morning, and his legacy of 26 years at DRW cannot be jeopardized just by the Cumberland unit that operates in the crypto world. And so, for us, we have a very strong legal team, legal compliance team, and the KYC and AML that we implement is paramount, and it's essentially the backbone of our business, right? It's the same thing if you were to go to a bank and you wanted to open a bank account. In most banks around the world, they would want all your personal particulars. And so, for us, knowing that we're conducting our business in a manner that would be fully compliant should this industry be regulated in the future is always going to be first and foremost for us. And so that at the moment makes it difficult for us to operate on some decentralized exchanges.
Got it. Well, and I wanted to ask Wayne, is it similar for you? Is there a way for you to engage with a decentralized structure? Or is that beside the point with your brokerage, or is that something you would aspire to potentially interact with that kind of framework?
Yeah, I think, look, much like Justin, the concept is fascinating, and decentralization, or that movement overall, is certainly something that we'd like to encourage. But in addition to the KYC and AML and KYB challenges that are currently around, the other challenge is fiat rails, fiat gateways, and also scalability and liquidity. But like the asset class as a whole is 10 years old, and the DEX space is a lot newer than that. I'd expect the technology to improve over time, and we're all about embracing the best technology that's available in the space. And I'd love those venues to be part of our liquidity landscape.
I think, again, on that note, it's so fascinating because the crypto world and the blockchain world is incredibly dynamic. There's so many intellectual minds. There's so much money even moving into the space that the technology is revolutionary. But at the same time, when the industry calls for institutional capital to come in, institutional adoption, we always hear the word like custody being thrown around. Like, what does that really entail? And I think that's exactly where we try to focus in our business is, again, the scalable nature of making sure you run a crypto trading firm that facilitates liquidity in a manner that can actually grow as this space starts to institutionalize, right? All the bottlenecks that might constrain OTC liquidity, we don't want to be subject to that. And so that's the benefit of how we run our business in accordance with how what DRW has been doing for so long, is applying the same principles, and even the technology we use is built by DRW over the last 26 years. It's just sort of now tailored to the Cumberland unit, and all the stuff that we currently use that's new is built in-house. So making sure for us, first and foremost, that we're operating in a compliant manner and then in a scalable manner to be able to facilitate, as Wayne said, large OTC trades is how we see this space in the OTC world landscape, at least, unfolding. And that, again, goes back to even the fact that we use our balance sheet as a large principal trading desk to be able to facilitate flow as well. It's a slightly different business model than OSL, but again, all these sort of business models can coexist in this world as the space starts to grow.
And yeah, Loy, I wanted to ask you if you see, yeah.
Right, so I just want to add one more point about the main role of decentralized chain. This is also to be the liquidity provider and also the settlement layer for all the decentralized applications. Because I think a lot of people are trying to build decentralized financial application, lending protocol, or decentralized payments. But most of them are running on smart contract, and there's only way for smart contract to work is to talk to other smart contract. It's very hard for smart contract to talk to centralized servers or human or OTC dealers. So it's important to have liquidity on chain so that other decentralized applications can actually talk and get access to liquidity and actually work.
Got it. We don't have too much time left, but I did want to ask one more OTC question. And tell me if I have my decimal point wrong. I was just talking to some people at the conference, and I was talking about the kind of orders and the kinds of things that are shopped in that market. And I was told, I believe, that sometimes there are large orders shopped around of 1,000 Bitcoin, that these are talked about. Did I get my decimal point wrong, or is that actually, something that you could see across your desk, 1,000? And does that get filled? Can that happen, or does it get talked about but never really executed?
I'd say 1,000 Bitcoin is certainly not uncommon. That's a daily occurrence, but I think the more fanciful 200,000 Bitcoins or 700,000 Bitcoins are bandied around, and I'm sure Justin's had his fair share of unicorns float past his desk as well. I think the likelihood of that scale and that size of transaction coming off regularly is very low, but certainly 1,000, 2,000, even up to 10,000 are not uncommon.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree with Wayne right there. I mean, if anybody that wants to move a substantial amount of coin, you wouldn't be able to do that in exchange. You would come to an OTC desk, and yeah, I mean, if someone were to rock up and ask us for a price in 1,000 coins, we would make that price immediately. It would go directly into our book, and if it were myself or one of our other traders making that price, it would just go into our book immediately under our name there, and we would decide later what we want to do with that position.
When we're talking about that size, are we mostly talking miners, or are we talking people who have been in this world for a long time and have large stores of it, or who's the typical counterparty for that, if there is one?
I'm not sure there's really a typical counterparty. I think it's really spread across, our client base is quite institutional, so family offices, crypto funds, ultra high net worth individuals all make up our client base. I'd say the traditional long-short hedge fund community is dipping their toe in the water, but the reality is that we're not really there in size yet. And certainly the long-only fund managers, they're still quite a way away.
Yeah, I think for us, orders of that size usually would be some of the more prominent early adopters of the crypto industry that we've had a relationship with for a while. Guys who may have gotten in the first few years of Bitcoin's existence. Certainly a lot of miners come through with us, and we do operate and trade with them, and crypto funds as well can be very active. So like Wayne said, we do see a large mix, but I would say some of the larger trades we see would be the earliest sort of influencers in the space.
Well, then we only have 2 minutes left, but I'm told, Wayne, that you have some breaking news that you're going to announce.
Yeah, super excited. So everyone in the room today will be the first in the world for us to announce our global partnership with one of the world's premier luxury watch brands, Hublot, to commemorate the 10-year anniversary of Bitcoin this year. Hublot is releasing a very limited edition Big Bang Bitcoin watch. Only 210 watches available globally. Exclusively available through Asia's leading brokerage, OSL. And the global PR announcement will only go out in about an hour's time. So
Is that the one like
this is a big bang, you're right. So actually we're taking, if you want to register your interest, there's literally 210 of these things globally. They're an amazing timepiece, and Hublot is committed to being the timekeeper of crypto. And so please find us at the OSL booth. We're very excited by the partnership, and for us, not only important for us, but it's a sign of the space maturing and more institutional brands, luxury brands associating themselves with the space can only be good for all of us. So.
Given that that watch is, Big Bang, is it shockproof? Is that, sorry, that's a terrible joke. They're never going to let me on stage again. I had to try.
Yeah, I liked it, yeah.
All right. Well, the timer is flashing, but I just wanted to thank the panelists very much, and thank you very much to the audience for being here and listening to this very helpful, informative discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much to our panel. Loy Liu from KHYBER Network, great job. Thank you. Justin Chow, he's the man. Thank you. Big announcement from Wayne. Wayne, I don't know if you remember, but this was live streamed. It was everybody in this room and everybody around the world on the live stream. So thank you very much for making the big announcement here at Consensus Singapore. John Dietrich, thank you very much for doing double duty today.